People in that city still talk about Xiao Ding. Not because of how he lived, but because of how he came home after he died. His story has circulated for years, passed quietly between people who believe something unexplainable happened that night. Xiao Ding grew up in a traditional Chinese household where the father's authority was absolute. He was expected to follow the family's rules, respect hierarchy, and live a disciplined life. But he belonged to a different generation, one shaped by nightlife, freedom, and the modern culture of the city. This clash between tradition and modernity defined his entire relationship with his father. To his father, strictness meant protection. To Xiao Ding, it felt like control. His closest friend was Zhang, a quiet young man renting a tiny room in the city. They met online, bonded over late-night games and cheap beer, and eventually became inseparable. Zhang lived simply. Xiao Ding lived loudly. But their friendship worked because Zhang offered stability, while Xiao Ding brought energy and excitement. The breaking point came after yet another argument at home. Xiao Ding had been staying out late, bringing girlfriends home, and ignoring every rule his father set. One night, the tension finally erupted. His father, overwhelmed by frustration and fear of losing control, lashed out physically. For a traditional father, this was the last tool he believed he had. For a modern son, it was the final betrayal. Humiliated and furious, Xiao Ding stormed out of the house and went straight to Zhang's rental room. Zhang didn't ask questions. He simply let him in. From that night onward, strange things began to happen. Every night at exactly 2 in the morning, Xiao Ding would suddenly jolt upright in bed. His eyes would be wide open, his breathing rapid, his body trembling as if he had just escaped something terrifying. His skin turned cold, and sweat covered his forehead. Then, just as suddenly, he would collapse back into sleep. The next morning, he remembered nothing. This happened again the next night. And the next. 7 nights in a row. Always at the same time. Always with the same expression of terror. By the 7th night, his hands had turned unnaturally cold. The color drained from his fingernails, giving them a pale, lifeless look. Zhang watched all of this in silence, unsure whether to call a doctor or a spiritual practitioner. In many parts of China, unexplained nighttime episodes are often interpreted as warning signs that something is approaching. During this period, Xiao Ding met a new girl named Jing. She was beautiful, outgoing, and lived the same nightlife rhythm he did. She represented the modern world he wanted to belong to, far from his father's expectations. The two became close almost immediately. One afternoon, after drinking together, someone suggested visiting a fortune teller known as Blind Master. He wasn't blind, but his thick glasses and unfocused gaze made people uneasy. Locals said he was accurate, sometimes disturbingly so. The group went to see him, half joking, half curious. He made a few predictions for others, some harmless, some unsettling. But when it was Xiao Ding's turn, the atmosphere changed. The fortune teller didn't ask for birth dates or any information. He simply looked at Xiao Ding for a long moment, and his expression darkened. He said that after the age of 20, he could no longer see Xiao Ding's future. It was as if the young man's life simply stopped. And Xiao Ding's 20th birthday was only days away. Everyone laughed it off, but the uneasiness lingered. Especially for Zhang, who had witnessed the nightly episodes. That night, Xiao Ding left on his motorcycle with Jing. Another friend rode separately on his own bike. They planned to meet at a late-night barbecue stall. Less than 10 minutes later, the crash happened. Xiao Ding's motorcycle was hit so hard that pieces of it scattered across the road. Witnesses said he lay motionless, with blood flowing from his ears, a sign of severe brain trauma. Ambulances arrived quickly, and all three were taken away. Jing suffered only minor injuries. The friend on the other motorcycle was shaken but physically stable. And Xiao Ding was in the worst condition of all. Zhang rushed to the hospital and stayed there the entire time. He waited outside the emergency room, refusing to leave until he knew the truth. Doctors worked on Xiao Ding for as long as they could, but the injuries were too severe. Shortly after midnight, they informed him that Xiao Ding had died. Jing was emotionally unstable, trembling and unable to process what had happened. She had nowhere else to go that night, so Zhang took her back to his rental room to rest. It was past midnight when they arrived. The moment they stepped inside, a loud noise came from the kitchen. It sounded like something falling or someone bumping into the counter. Jing froze. Her face drained of color. She stared toward the kitchen with an expression of pure terror. Zhang looked, but the kitchen was empty. A few minutes later, the friend who had been riding the second motorcycle arrived. His injuries were minor, and the hospital had discharged him after observation. He came to check on Zhang and Jing. But the moment he entered the apartment, he walked straight into the kitchen as if drawn by something. He sat down on the floor and began speaking into the empty space. His tone was calm, emotional, almost relieved, like someone talking to a close friend who had just returned home. He described the crash in detail, mentioning things he could not possibly have known because he had been thrown off his bike and disoriented. He continued like this for nearly an hour. During that time, the kitchen light flickered on and off. The air grew cold enough that Zhang could see his breath. Jing hid behind the wardrobe, trembling uncontrollably, refusing to look toward the kitchen. When the friend finally came out, he acted as if nothing unusual had happened. The next morning, Zhang returned to the hospital not to handle paperwork, because he had no legal standing as a friend, but to meet Xiao Ding's parents. They had rushed over from their hometown after receiving the official notice of death. Zhang stayed with them, explained what had happened, and helped them navigate the overwhelming situation. In the days that followed, Zhang continued to assist the family. He helped contact relatives, arranged transportation, and accompanied them during the funeral preparations. He wasn't responsible for the formal procedures, those belonged to the parents, but he was there for everything else. As for Jing, she disappeared the day after the incident. No messages, no explanations, no trace. In many parts of China, people believe in the idea of a returning soul. That a person who dies suddenly may come home one last time, still confused, still searching, still trying to finish something left undone. Whether Xiao Ding returned to say goodbye, or whether something else came back in his place, no one knows. But the people who were there that night never forgot what they experienced.